The trader. In Catan, traders look at efficient resource exchanges as a main path to victory, instead of just focusing on expansion and building. This means they make frequent and strategic trades instead of just waiting for their dice rolls. They treat the game like an economy, looking at where the value lies and what resources are most desired. And then, they turn on others' needs in their advantage by offering trades that seem fair, but actually push you closer to a critical build. In fact, traders may settle in spots with just 2 or 3 resource types, using this trading to make up the difference and tend to build towards ports earlier on to gain flexibility. It's often best to play this style when your spot is not strong, often lacking resources, but you do have access to ports and the table is open to trading instead of just being silent. The Road Hog. Road Hogs are players who aggressively build roads, often more than is needed. They do this not to only secure the longest road, but also to control space and cut off opponents looking at a more territorial defense. As a result, these players recognize where opponents may expand to and block these paths, also calling key intersections for others can actually, which then forces their opponents into less favorable spots. Given this style of play, road hogs are dependent on heavy amounts of wood and brick in order to function. They do use secondary support with some wheat and ore to eventually build cities as well. But because of this, these players become very vulnerable against the robber, as only one move can deny you access to both wood and brick. However, once you have the longest road secured, pivot to settlements or cities in order to avoid stagnation. The Robber. In Catan, this playstyle is aggressive, maximizing the robber to control the game's resource flow and hinder opponents in order to create political pressure. They place the robber on key hexes and punish leaders or manipulate specific players. This means they also have to steal key resources both for themselves and also to disrupt the opposition using dev cards to keep the robber moving and gain the largest army. Of course, this requires wheat, sheep and ore resources, so they target these hexes for placement to fuel their army of knights. In fact, robbers are not obvious targets, so they can control the board quietly. Their main targets are the 6 and 8 cards who provide highest yields, or hexes with many settlements placed around it for maximal destruction. But they can easily become a hate target, as this play involves overusing the robber, so players often retaliate and refuse to trade with them or form truces. The Hoarder. In Catan, the Hoarder is a resource control player who focuses on accumulating a large number of cards without necessarily trading in order to wait for big game-changing turns. It's a high-risk, high-reward style that looks to control resource flow and build in short bursts to form many cities all at once. In fact, they don't often trade, just to ensure that opponents doing so gain more power than they should. This makes them hard to predict, however, they are also very vulnerable. Hoarders are at risk for the robber and 7 rolls, as if the robber is put on them, they will lose a large amount of cards all at once. Also, their selfish and silent playstyle also triggers opponents, meaning retaliation, which more than often means the robber is put on them. The Expansionist. This player grows their presence across the board as fast and wide as possible. They build many settlements and claim open spaces early on, diversifying resources through aggressive expansion rather than just using trades or development cards. In fact, they build lots of settlements and secure all 5 resources, which can help them win over through board control. To start, they choose locations with high number probabilities, prioritizing brick and wood, and ideally covering 3 different resources right away. They build roads towards open areas, especially rich or contested interactions, and get a 3rd settlement fast. Then, they continue expanding to new locations such as ports or more high probability numbers, before then transitioning to cities from settlements to help them secure the overall win. The Merchant. In Catan, merchants focus on ports and form their own economy rather than focusing on trading with others. They secure 1 or 2 ports early in the game, preferably the 2-to-1 ratio ports, and then leverage these trades to fix resource imbalances. In fact, merchants exploit overproduction of 1 or 2 resources by converting them into whatever is needed and minimize their dependence on others' trades. This means playing the merchant can win you the game very easily without having to use any skill involved just because of these trades, but it's all down to the luck of your first hand placement.